going? I think this idea of being self-made or self-made entrepreneur or self-made man is a very ungrateful view of things, because I don't think anyone is really truly self-made. Everybody, if you look at most success stories, you'll find that everybody has been given some kind of help or opportunity, a handout, really, that was responsible for their success in a big way. And it's usually something that is hard to come by. Most people wouldn't have. It's a huge advantage. Now, that's not to take away from the fact that there's hard work, opportunity, intelligence, and so on behind it. But there's always also this handout, this help that had come along. Take a look at, for instance, Bezos. He got a loan from his family, which is, probably not a small loan for most people to start the business. It would have not been possible without it. Most of us can't get such a big loan from our family to take on some crazy idea that we might do. Mark Zuckerberg got basically an investment that had turned things around for him. There was even Google. They had an angel investment that had, basically started the whole thing. Even Apple was, in a big way, had this. This is just, one of the multiple steps in which they had gotten a handout, gotten some help, gotten to get on their feet. I heard Donald Trump say something along the lines of, "I'm self-made. I only got a small $10 million loan from my father," and then whatever. And it's like, without getting too political, but sorry, a $10 million loan is not a small loan. Most people would have a hard time getting that loan from anybody. And then it's not just the loan. He had his family name. He had his father's reputation. He had the connections and contacts from his father. So all of those things had helped, obviously, in his success, in his alleged success, I should say. In any case, and so I am no different, and I'd like to share with you some of the things that were some of the help that I had along the way that is not attributable to my intelligence, to my hard work, to the opportunities, to anything else. Some of the stuff that I've had, some of the people who had played roles in my success. So a couple of the people. I'm gonna start out with a different story, but first of all, let me tell you a couple of people who played a huge part in my success, in my journey. There are two people who, if you have if you have the Super Traffic Machine, you'll see that the brand plan is dedicated to my father, and my father was instrumental in my success. I may have some, criticisms, or as we all do, of how I felt at certain occasions that perhaps he had hindered me unintentionally, obviously, because he doesn't come from this background of entrepreneurship. And the other dedication in the website manual, module 2, to my uncle, who was also instrumental. I'm going to tell you the stories about both of them. But let me begin with a story that starts about, 10 or so, probably a bit more than 10 years ago. I was having some pretty good results with internet marketing at the time. I was not living in the United States. I was in Jordan, but I would fly to the United States from time to time to do some business meeting, to hold a mastermind, to follow up on some opportunity or something of the sort, right? And so they were always brief trips. There was a point in time when I partnered up with Ray and Fernie, Raymond Fong and Fernando Ceballos, who were I had done a lot of projects with them over the years. They were really smart guys, and they were a really powerful team to have in your corner. And we were working on a project together, and then they called me. They asked me to come out to the States because they partnered up, and they wanted me to join them with a guy called Jimmy Davis. I don't know if you remember him, but he used to work with Dennis Carganilla in a company that really took off called MLM Goldmine. Back in the days, it was like one of the first social media sort of MLM type of opportunities. It really took off, and they did amazingly together. So what I knew about Jimmy Davis was that he was a very successful guy. He was friends with all the right people. He was friends with Mike Dillard. He was friends with the Carbon Copy Pro guys. I heard that from others that he would go into an event, and he would give a talk and come out with $100,000-$200,000. He just closed $100,000-$200,000 in sales, just like that. And as far as I knew, this was a guy that was worth knowing. Of course, I didn't know the real Jimmy Davis at the time, and so I went, had a bunch of money in my, saved up in my account, and I was, working on my next opportunity. So here we were. Unfortunately, and I don't want to get into the ugly details about working with Jimmy, but it was not a good partnership. It was not a good deal. I didn't know what kind of guy he was. Some of the money was lost genuinely in basically a bad opportunity, and some of it was lost in outright theft. Unfortunately, that is what the situation was, and I had gone there with the intention to, basically looking to come to make more money and come back with, in a better position. And what had happened instead is that I was looking at the very real possibility of returning home with my tail tucked between my legs, basically with most of my money gone. So I thought, well, I better make the best of a bad situation and try to figure out a way to get things, to get things back. So I had a project that was, that been several years back and forthing still. It was very slow progress with David Schwind. So I decided to focus my energy and effort on that. And at the same time, I started doing some other things, and kind of restored my position. We actually, not just kind of, we really did really well. Now, partway through this project, which was going really well, where we had made some significant amount of money, I was just basically waiting for the payday on it. I decided to take a break and go for holiday back home to my family. And while I was there, that basically I realized that all of the work that we had done, all of the money that we had made, I was not going to be receiving a single penny of it, because my partner had been a little bit reckless with our money and, disorganized with it, and basically there was nothing left of it. It spent it all. So there I was looking at this crappy situation, and of course the exact thing I'd been trying to avoid, and I felt absolutely devastated. You cannot imagine how devastating this was, because I didn't just lose the money, I lost all the things that were attached to the future plans that I had for the money that we had made, and the money that we were going to make, and the business that we had built together that we were going to be continuing to build together. I unfortunately was in this really crappy situation, and I knew that I'd made some terrible choices, and I started to look hard at myself. And one of the first thing that I did was I turned to God. Now, you don't have to believe in God. You don't have to agree with me on any of this. This is only part of it, but I want to first of all begin by telling you the very important role that my belief in God had to do with my success. Now, whether you believe or don't believe, that's up to you, but my belief played a very important role in my success. And I think that most of us, when we feel this despair, even when those of us who don't believe, when we feel this sense of despair, where we have nowhere to turn and we don't know what to do, we kind of secretly, a little part of us, even the atheist among us, will kind of go, hey, God, get me out of this, So I, of course, was never, I'd always been, I'd had a shaky, well, I had a on and off relationship, I guess, with God, which was unfortunate. And I regretted this because one of the things that I had, one of the things that we believe in is this concept of blessing, barakah, it's called in Arabic. The idea that you could, for instance, make a lot of money and have no barakah in that money. That would mean that it's basically empty. It's money that you earn, but then you just don't know. Somehow it runs out. It just doesn't do anything. It doesn't have impact. And I felt that this is what had happened to me. I had no impact with the money that I'd earned. I earned a lot of money, but it didn't amount to anything substantial. It didn't do anything of substance. So the opposite of this is where you have barakah in your money, and that means that even when you earn a small amount, somehow it tends to stretch. It tends to do things that you never expected of it. And so I had realized or figured that this is what is happening to me, and I needed to first of all reclaim my relationship with God. And so I did that. I'm happy to tell you that it has been more than 10 years now, basically since that day when I made that decision, that I have been blessed to continue in that relationship in the same way, and I have not felt that I have been abandoned at any moment, no matter how bad things got. I never felt that I was abandoned. I felt that I always had His blessings, that I was lucky, and this is an extremely important thing. It played a huge role in my success. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples real quickly. So one of the things that I had done was it's been several years after. I talk about the monthly launch formula quite a lot, the 90-minute app that I had built, that I had created, the 90-minute app product. This started with a gift that my brother had given me as he was passing through. At the time, he bought me a tablet. It was the first tablet that I owned. I didn't really think that there was much of, I didn't understand how a tablet was significantly different in its applications from what you would get out of, say, a computer, a laptop, versus or a mobile phone. So you had these two form factors, and then there's the tablet in between. Well, what's this for? To be honest, I still don't really see the application. I mean, my kid sees the application more than I do, but I don't really. But anyway, the cool thing about it was that as soon as I got it, all I wanted to do was to program the thing. And I'd had this idea for years before, actually, of a counting prayer rug, which was basically a kind of a counter, because I'd forget how many iterations I'd done, and there's a certain number you have to do in the prayer, and I'd always forget. And so that would be solved with some kind of a counter. And I thought that this was going to need, some deal with China where you'd have a supplier and you'd have to have this product custom made. It was just a whole area that I had no experience in, and I didn't know that I'd ever do it. But I thought this is a great application for a mobile device. And so I built a mobile application. I learned how to build a mobile application. Used the proximity sensor, and I built this fantastic application. I actually learned quite a bit because I picked up the Steve Jobs manifesto, which was explaining what a mobile app should be like, how it should be designed, and it actually really helped me with all of my marketing work from that day forward. So, and all of my software development work too. So this was actually a pretty cool thing. But this is what I call barakah. This is what I mean by barakah, right? That application, I put it up. I decided to put it up for free on the web, on basically the app stores, the Android and the Apple stores. And I decided what I would do is I would accept donations, voluntary donations, that I would then put towards a charity that my wife and I contribute to, as an orphanage that we sponsor, and that was the idea. Now it wasn't a success. It wasn't like a major success where we got a lot of donations or anything like that. It was just a moderate. Actually, it wasn't even a moderate success. It was kind of a flop, to be honest. But The intention was there. And so I'd spent quite a bit of time on this project, and it inspired the next project, which was, hey, why don't I teach people on my mailing list how to build a mobile app? And that got me thinking about, selling sort of more technical topics to the marketing audience and bringing them like that. I could be a bridge between these very technical topics and making them very simple to a marketing audience. And I made a lot of money from doing this, selling products of this type over the years, until this day, as recently as the Business Command Center, which was a technical topic wrapped up in a way that would interest internet marketers. Even the launch strategy that I used when I built the 90-minute mobile app, it all came from this. So here's what I mean. That's what I mean by the baraka, where basically this small act of goodwill, this intention was there. It carried all the way through to basically generate a lot of money over the years. And I attribute this to that faith. I have also, I changed the way that I do business to be more moral and ethical and much more deliberately so. I've never been an immoral guy, but being God conscious makes me err towards more basically being more fair or giving more than I get, basically. And this has been a very rewarding experience for me. So that is one example. Another one, just a really quick one. When I write emails, I have a routine in which I would first start my day. So before I begin writing an email, I start my day with, I made a promise a few years ago that I would memorize a part of the Quran every day, and that I would eventually, by the end of my life, hopefully be able to memorize the entire thing. And so every day I begin the day with about 30 minutes to an hour of Quran revision or memorization. And when I finish with that, then I do my, my prayers. Like I ask for God's blessings and help. I begin in the name of God, and I write my emails. And then when I send the email, I also follow it with a whole lot of prayer. And this is a routine that I got into, and this has brought a lot of blessings. And I attribute my sales to, of course, the good emails that have been written, but the inspiration that I received to write them is from God. And of course, any time that there is, a roll of the dice, that roll of the dice falls in your favor when you are in alignment with your faith. Now, let's move on to the next one. So, as I mentioned, I had come back to this really crappy situation. I was on holiday, and this crappy situation occurs in which I had basically lost everything that I had. And one of the nice things that happened at that time was my father, who over the years has always been a seriously, he basically pushed me in all the right directions. He's the one who taught me or started me, one of the people who started me on programming, and I'll tell you the story shortly. But what he did at the time was he saw me in this crappy situation, this crappy state, and he knew what I needed. And what he did was he pulled out basically a bank account, and he handed it to me. It was like it had like $100,000 or so. He's not a wealthy man. He's a professor at a university. He makes an average pay. In fact, at the time he was working for a far more reduced pay than he ever made in his life, because he was working in Jordan. And so he gives me this bank account, and he goes, "That's all for you. Use it to get back on your feet." And he just gave it to me just like that. And I'll never forget that, because that was, I didn't actually end up using the money, but just that gesture was absolutely, I used some of it, obviously. I took some of his help, but that was a huge gesture. That was amazing. Nobody would easily do that. And even if it is your father, not many fathers are prepared to, throw that kind of money, basically, at their kid. for something that maybe they don't even really believe in. And that, for the most part, I don't think he really believed in what I was doing. So I'll never forget that. That was huge. And I did get on my feet soon after that. Now, this is aside from the fact that my father has been along on my side all the way. Now, I want to tell you, there's a combination story actually. So when I was a small child, 4 or 5 years old, I remember having a walk with my dad. We're walking somewhere, I can't remember where I was accompanying him, and he said to me, "You know that your uncle has made for you a computer." And I'm like, "A computer? What's that?" This is back in the 80s, obviously, so computers were not exactly, popular. At the time, I didn't know what a computer was, but I got the idea that it was some kind of like a television of some sort. And I said to him, "Does he know how to make televisions?" And he said, "Yeah, he sure does." I said, "Well, what does he do?" And he said, "He's an engineer." And I'm like, wow, I'm going to be an engineer when I grow up. And that was the first big moment where my father had pointed me in the right direction. He basically, the way he spoke about his brother was with such admiration and respect that I wanted whatever it was that he was. I didn't know what he was, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so I pursued that life for a large part of my life. I wanted to be an engineer. And as I learned more, I wanted to be an electronic engineer. And then as I learned more, I wanted to be a computer engineer, and so on. So this was all part of it. Now, my uncle also, they kind of played roles at the same time. Now, we moved around a lot. We were in Saudi Arabia, then we were in New Zealand, we were in Malaysia, we were in different countries, we were in Oman. And my uncle was in the United States. He was, as far as I know, he was a student for most of this time. And yet, and I hadn't met my uncle until I was maybe 14 years old. I didn't actually meet him. And this uncle, who I dedicated the second manual of the Super Traffic Machine to, and the dedication read something along the lines of, "To my Uncle Sam, who taught me my love of machines." One of the earliest memories I have of something he sent me, and he would send these things from the United States, and they were a lot less easy to find in wherever we were. Even in New Zealand, they were difficult to find these things. He sent me these large 5 1/4-inch PC discs, and they were all educational games, mathematics and stuff like that. And I used to play those. I loved them. Even when I got a little bit older, I still loved to play those games. When he learned that I was interested in programming, so my father, when I was 9 years old, I've told this story before, I'll tell it really briefly now. I came home one day and I wanted to play on the computer. I was 9 years old, and my dad said to me, I said to him, "Dad, when can I have the computer?" And he said to me, I'm doing some work right now. Why don't you do your homework, and then you can use it. And I said to him, "Oh, Dad, come on, I want to play on the computer. I finished my homework." And he said to me, "Well, instead of playing games, why don't you make them?" I'm like, "What? Make games? Really? I can do that?" And I was like, "Tell me more," And so he gave me, because I kept pushing, and he really needed to do his work, and he couldn't get rid of me. He gave me this manual for HyperCard, which was the first language that I learned, and it inspired actually the latest manual that I sent out this month, is actually very much inspired by the HyperCard manual that I learned from. So I sat down and I worked through it with him for the first couple of days. For the first, a couple of hours or so, and then he went to sleep and I continued after him. So I learned programming because of my father's inspiration. And again, later on, he saw me. I used to take out these books from the library and I'd copy all this code, and it just wouldn't work because it was all written for the BBC Micro and the Atari and stuff like that. And I had an Apple Macintosh SE30 at the time, and I'm sitting there looking. I grabbed the keyboard from the computer and I look behind the TV trying to plug it in, because the Atari and the Commodore 64 and the BBC Micro that these applications were written for would plug into these into the television in this way. And I, of course, couldn't find it. And when he saw me doing this, he's like, "What are you trying to do?" I said to him, I want to program in BASIC." And he's like, "I have BASIC." And he pulled out the discs and he said, "I'll show you how to get started with it." And he got me started, and I continued with that. My dad was a student at the time, and he even hired for me a tutor to help me get started with C and like so many other things that he did. So this was huge. My success was there's no way I could ever claim that I'm self-made, given that all of this had gone into getting me to the level of programmer and technologist that I am. Not only that, my uncle had also supported me throughout. So he sent me the ThinkC, the Semantic ThinkC manual, which inspired the Super Traffic Machine manuals that you guys have, hopefully. Even the layout and everything is based on those Semantic ThinkC manuals. So I learned how to program C from those. He bought me a piano that plugs into the computer and software that teaches you how to play it. He used to make me Linux administrator accounts and FTP accounts back in the days when nobody even had the internet. So it was on the university server, and I'd go in there and I'd build out websites and I'd muck around in there and download files and games and applications and things like that. And so much stuff. He bought the first modem that I ever used. So my actual first real connection to the internet from home was because of the modem that he bought me. And he sent over from the States. And again, like I said, he was a student at the time. He was buying me these things. And this technology was not cheap then either, because it was like cutting edge. It was brand new stuff. I remember when I was 14, I met him for the first time. He came on holiday. Actually, he came to get married. And so we were all there in Jordan for the wedding. And he had brought with him, imagine this guy's coming to his wedding, and he filled his bags with computer parts so he could teach me how to put together a computer, how to build a computer. So I cannot tell you how much these two people played a role in my success, and there's so many other people too, but these were like, my father and my uncle were absolutely instrumental in everything that I've done. I cannot deny, and I would be an extremely ungrateful piece of shit to come here and tell you I'm self-made. This is all me. I did this all by myself. I didn't do anything by myself. I couldn't have done anything without these people in my life. I couldn't have done anything without God's help. So I want to wrap up here by telling you to remember to be grateful to the people who got you to where you are today. Remember to be grateful. Remember to be grateful to God. Don't be one of those ungrateful people who has no blessings in their life because they don't appreciate the people who contributed to their success and don't acknowledge them. Be a grateful person. And pay that forward. Pay it back to others. When you see somebody else that could use your help, give that help to them. Give that help to them. I have made it my mission to pay that forward to everybody who comes seeking knowledge, especially with technology, especially with computers, from my relatives, from people that I know, from my customers. I want to pay that back. I want to share my love of technology with all people, with everybody who comes seeking knowledge about technology. You too do that. Look at the things that have inspired you, the things that have contributed to your success. Be grateful and pay it forward. Pay it to the next generation. All right, with that, I'm going to let you go. Until the next video, take care.